I'm not sure if it was smart or stupid, courageous or crazy, but I jumped in feet first. You have to be prepared to really knuckle down for 6 months and just have faith that what you're building on and what you're committing your time to will pay off. Our initial niche is private markets, fundraisers within private markets, but we have our sights set far beyond just fundraisers and just private markets.
Hi, I'm Tom Guinness and welcome to the Raising Europe podcast. Here we go behind the scenes with the people building the future of European tech. Today we welcome Thomas Nolan to the show. Thomas is the co-founder and CEO of Ardessa. Ardessa is an AI-powered private markets fundraising and relationship management platform based in Dublin. If you want to learn how to build the future of private capital markets, you don't want to miss this. Before we begin, I have a quick favor to ask you. Raising Europe is a community-supported channel. If you find that our content has been valuable to you or has helped you in any way, please hit the subscribe button. It's one quick, free, easy way for you to support the channel. Thank you so much for joining us on our journey so far. Without you, none of this would be possible. Now, with that out of the way, let's dive into today's episode. Thomas, it's great to have you on the show today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Tom. Might be a bit confusing for our listeners having Tom and Thomas, but yeah, hopefully we can make do.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Like, tell us about your entrepreneurial journey to date.
Yeah.
And how you started Ardessa.
That's the main question, isn't it? I'm Thomas Nolan, from Ireland. I'm 28. Yeah, going back to the start, I grew up in rural Ireland, in Bantry. Quickly got out of Bantry after secondary school or high school. Started to study law for my undergraduate before doing my master's in law and finance. So took a few twists and turns along the way, but I eventually landed at a US family office. So that was my first kind of foray into the world of finance, under a US investor called Rich Corbett and his family office called Palm Street Capital, where I worked for a year before joining StepStone Group. So one of the largest asset managers in private markets, the largest allocator globally. They allocate about 80 billion on a yearly basis. So I had a bit of experience about a small family office and then a larger asset manager. And while I was working at that asset manager, I was originally on the private credit team before moving to the fundraising team in London. And that's really where Ardessa was born.
Right. So what was the kind of aha moment or kind of spark of inspiration that like drove you to start Ardessa?
That's a good question. I think I always wanted to start my own business. Really going back, I was thinking about this before because I knew that Ardessa wasn't the first moment that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And I didn't think of it at the time, but when I was in university, I guess you could call it a business. But I was selling secondhand clothes on Depop. I had an impromptu system where I'd go to thrift stores and charity shops around Dublin, try to find a nice piece and sell it online. I had a system, I had everything tracked. I even knew what days the orders came to each thrift store and charity shop. So unbeknownst to me, I think that was my first kind of taster of entrepreneurship. So it was always there. I always knew that I wanted to start my own business. So even though I absolutely loved working at StepStone, I loved working in business development. And obviously I was a young lad, I loved working in London too. But sometimes there's an itch that you just can't scratch. And that was starting my own business. So the aha moment for me really was when I was sitting at my desk every day. The year that I was working in StepStone, I raised just over 10 million. And I hold my hand up and say that was almost exclusively through having a system in place, just putting in brute force hours and really grinding it out. And I was happy at the end of the year, but I knew that the work that I did could and should be done at the click of a button, specifically for fundraisers, business developers, and salespeople in private markets, which is an extremely relationship-based business, as you know.
Yeah.
But there's no specific system out there that's tailored to the nuance of private markets business development. So that was the aha moment for Ardessa. And then I jumped in feet first. I'm not sure if it was smart or stupid, courageous or crazy, but yeah, I quit my job at StepStone. Thankfully, I had a fantastic manager who completely understood that this was something that I needed to do. He could relate to me because he himself left his job at 27 to start his own business. So he backed me fully. I had the backing of StepStone, left on great terms, and started Ardessa.
So why the name Ardessa?
It's a funny story, you know. First of all, I love the name. I think it has a nice ring to it. It's something that I think is trustworthy and solid, which is super important in finance and private markets. So the name popped into my head randomly. And when I was doing a bit of research on it, of course, you're coming up with a whole load of names. I think Theseus was one as well. Ardessa was the second, so a few different types. I looked up Ardessa, and it was actually the name of a book written about 100 years ago by a lady called Willa Cather. And the premise of the book was the old way of doing business and the new way of doing business. And I thought that was quite poignant. So did a bit of further DD. The domain was free. No other company was using it. So it aligned both at the story and then practically as well.
So how big do you think the market opportunity is for Ardessa?
I think it's huge, really. So our initial niche is private markets, fundraisers within private markets. So it's kind of a niche within a niche. This specific kind of niche that we're targeting, we estimate a TAM of about 3 billion, to put a rough figure on it. But you know, we have our sights set far beyond just fundraisers and just private markets. You know, investment banking, wealth management, M&A, consultancy. We kind of view ourselves as the relationship operating system for any relationship-based kind of sales or long-term deal cycles where the relationship is really the key component.
Can you explain to us in plain English, you know, how the product works?
Yeah. What are we, 10 minutes in, and I actually haven't touched on Ardessa at all, really. So in super plain English, because I appreciate it's private markets is one thing and finance is another. A lot of people maybe don't have experience or kind of any connection to finance or the space. So in super plain English, the problem that we're solving is that these fundraisers and business developers in private markets, they actually spend less than 40% of their time on high value work and more specifically in-person relationships. So the remainder of that time is being taken up by manual, repetitive, and mundane tasks that you have to do on a daily basis. But those tasks are essential to that 40%. So we're trying to reduce that 60% that's spent on these repetitive tasks and allow our users to spend more time on key relationships.
Right. And so how did you build the MVP for Ardessa, and you know, where's the product in comparison today?
So there's been a lot of building. One of the startup tropes and common advice that you get as a founder is build fast and break things, get the MVP, just get it out there and iterate and build. While I do agree with that, of course, we're in financial services, we're building for these extremely sophisticated members of finance. So there's a balance to be struck. You can't just spin up, maybe you can for a demo, but a working prototype, it's hard to just spin something up on Lovable and get it out there. So thankfully, I've had a fantastic team. My co-founder, Aidan, who's been supporting me right from the start, we were kicking tires on this idea from last year. And then when we started to get serious, thankfully I had some technical backing to actually put my vision into reality and build something tangible that our users can use.
So how does Ardessa differ to the other products in the market? You know, what's your unfair advantage that other competitors don't have?
I think the fact that we're built specifically for private markets, for fundraisers, and for this extremely relationship-heavy domain, the fact that I've sat in the seat at StepStone and I was thinking even then of the product that I wanted to build, for me, the user that was boots on the ground. There are definite competitors, but they're more indirect competitors. You have CRMs, you have databases, you have these disparate systems that do maybe 5% or 10% of what Ardessa does as a core. So we are a differentiated solution, specifically built for this space. And that is something that is being built from our own experience working as business developers in private markets.
Right. And so, how are customers using the product? Can you give us some examples?
Yeah, so our first use case is around prospect identification, research, and then having the specific details about the investor or the LP as it relates to the fund and firm that are using our users. So for example, we have a real estate manager based in the US who uses Ardessa before every meeting because we pull in data sources that are both open source and proprietary, and those semi-open sources like LinkedIn, like paywalled news articles, to give them the best information ahead of their meeting in real time and immediately sent to their platform.
So what kind of impact can this have on their business?
Initially, we were saying it's time savings, and it's savings being truthful. It's that analyst in their pocket, so we can allow them to scale without adding headcount or to 10x the people that are already working in the firm. But apart from your foundational kind of time savings or monetary savings, you have to look beyond that to what those time savings allow the person to do. So it frees them up to spend more quality time with relationships, to do the work that really moves the needle with allocations, with closing deals. So that's kind of the main advantage that we offer at Ardessa.
Amazing. And so how many customers are using the platform today?
So right now we have 20 pilot users. We have a core segment of 5 key design partners. So we've been iterating and building with them before we really push sales, marketing, and go to market.
Right. And so when it comes to winning customers, how will you do that?
I think what's good with us is we can use Ardessa for our own sales push. And then the proof is in the pudding. We become our own user, and we can also, iterate and develop with our own outreach strategy. Since we're so early days and trust is such a big factor in this space of finance, I'm leaning heavily on relationships from my own time in London, building up our user base step by step. It really is founder-led, and yeah, we really do spend time researching each user and taking the time to really personalize the outreach. And we appreciate that it's a longer sales cycle. So we take the time to really research our user and spend time with them with outreach.
So we're here in Dogpatch Labs in Dublin. Thank you very much, Dogpatch, for having us. Is the whole team based here?
The whole team is based here. Yeah, we're incredibly fortunate that everyone's based in Dublin. We have a split which came about quite naturally of Irish and Spanish. It's almost 50-50. So David here, who helps me on the marketing side, is from Pamplona. Juan, our most recent joiner, is also from Spain. So we have kind of a split of Irish and Spanish developers who came about quite naturally. We're very fortunate to be based here in Dogpatch, which is the main startup hub in Dublin. So they're extremely accommodating, they're extremely understanding to the pain points, the trials and tribulations of founders. So being in a space like this, it's definitely been an advantage for us, because I understand that for especially early days startups, it may be tough to find, attract and retain talent. We've actually found the opposite, being based in a startup hub here, where you're speaking with fellow founders, you're speaking with people who are trying to get into a startup, And we've definitely benefited from the immense talent that's here in Dogpatch.
How would you describe the culture in the company?
The culture in the company, as a first-time founder, I think it's something that early days I should have put more time into explicitly drafting on a page. My CTO and I, we have really two main components that we look for with people joining and how we operate on a daily basis. The first is to be sound, which for anyone outside of Ireland, it's to be nice, be a good person. And the second is to have a good work ethic. Of course, talent and the experience is important, but we think if you're a good person and you have a hard work ethic, then there's a place for you at Ardessa. We've been extremely fortunate with the people that we've worked with, the people that we have on the team. And that's kind of the code that we have. One of our recent joiners, Juan, as I said, he's from Spain. He kept reiterating that my English isn't good. And to be honest, we said to him, we don't care if you can't speak a lick of English. You're a good guy, you're a talented developer, and you've an extremely hard work ethic. So he's been a fantastic addition to the team.
So if we take a step back and look at the entirety of the business, could you tell us a little bit about the unit economics and how does this all kind of translate into kind of dollars and cents? Or euros and cents?
Euros and cents. So we've been operating extremely lean. We haven't taken on any investment. We've been completely bootstrapped to date. And we've brought the product to a stage that we're extremely proud of, where users are paying us, really, really impactful sums of money for quite a lean operation that we've been running to date. So we view our starter tier, the average contract value, landing around $6K on a yearly basis. Our professional tier around $15K. And then our enterprise tier, of course, would be custom pricing depending on the users and the seats. But to date, we've ran it extremely lean. We've bootstrapped, and we wanted to get ourselves in a position where we have tangible signals before we eventually move to raise, probably around mid-2026.
And so, the initial bootstrapping phase, how was that? And what did you learn from it? It must have been tough.
It's been tough. I've learned that you have to have a head for this game. You have to be able to really knuckle down, kind of turtle up. You really have to be prepared. And this goes with anything in startup life. You have to be prepared to really knuckle down for 6 months, have really no signals, and just have faith that what you're building on and what you're committing your time to will pay off. I think the biggest investment apart from money is time. So it's around that 6 months or a year mark where you've really been grinding, that you really have to have a thick skin and be able to push through.
How have you found bootstrapping an AI business today?
Bootstrapping an AI business today, I think it's possible today in a way that wasn't possible even 5 years ago. The coming of these AI tools like Cursor and Claude Code just completely open up a whole new world of developers. Like, I'm non-technical, but I'm doing front-end development. If you told me that a year ago, I would have said you were crazy. I think if you have a good vision, there's a tangible product there and like a real pain point, then finding people like my co-founder and CTO, Aidan, who's come on board full-time at the end of November, so just a few months ago, it gives them solace to back the idea and to back it, speaking frankly, at a substantial pay cut to the job that he had prior. So I think it's a combination of being able to sell the dream to the team, being able to attract that talent, and then also having these tools at your fingertips where you can now build a product for a fraction of the price that it cost before.
And does that mean, when it comes to the amount of customers required to bring in to make this a self-sustaining business and not need to bring on additional capital, how does that look?
I think you can build a product to at least show the vision of what you want pretty easily. I think the real unlock for capital for us will be scale around go-to-market. That's where a raise for us would really, really make a huge impact.
So what's next for Ardessa? Where do you see the business going in the next 18 to 24 months?
Now that we've built out the product to a good place that we're proud of and that we can stand over, the next phase will be user acquisition and scaling revenue.
And so based on your experience to date with the business, what advice would you give to other aspiring founders and entrepreneurs?
It's interesting when people ask what advice I'd give, because I feel like I'm in no position to give advice. I'm learning every single day. The first piece of advice that I'd give is to question every piece of advice you get. You're the founder, you know best, you know your specific industry, where you're building, what your customers are telling you. Of course, listen to advice, but really you should make the final decision. Although, having said that, if I was to give advice, it would be just do it. You're going to learn more in one day putting yourself out there and actually trying to do what you're thinking about than 1 month of planning, research, and procrastination.
So outside of building the business, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? Usually hang out with friends. Anything away from a screen. My literally 9 to 9 during the week is staring at a computer screen on calls, trying to kind of stay engaged, stay focused. So when it comes to the weekends, I do a few hours work, but it's usually kind of lighter work. Anything outdoors, like hiking, going to the gym, spending time with friends, socializing, and giving myself a break from really being locked in is essential.
If you weren't a startup founder, what would you be?
This question is tough. I think I'd be back in London working in business development for most likely StepStone. Like, I love that. I love the job. I love the firm. I love the people that I was working with. I was incredibly fortunate. So I think if I wasn't a founder, I'd still be back there doing business development for StepStone.
So what are your top 3 films of all time?
The Lord of the Rings trilogy.
So is that 1, 2, 3? Is
that a cheat? Is that a cop-out? No, I think Lord of the Rings has to be up there. Second place is either between Star Wars or Dune.
So you got a tie second.
Yeah, it has to be Star Wars.
And is it the old Dune films or the new ones?
The new ones.
What 3 books would you recommend to others?
What 3 books? It's probably the most common answer you'll ever get on a book recommendation, but I think How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Great book.
It's a great book. I read that when I was about 17, so I think I read it at a good time to be impactful. Like, I think reading a book is great, but it's also the time that you read it, especially one of these kind of like self-help kind of improvement books. Apart from those kind of serious books, A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, I think is pretty cool. And a series I'm reading at the moment, which is the Stormlight Archives by Brandon Saunderson. So I think you can see a theme between my movie recommendations and my books. It's usually sci-fi. It's usually just something you can tune out to, and escape.
Yeah, great recommendations. Final question. Who's your celebrity lookalike?
Damn, celebrity lookalike. Maybe you can tell me. I think people have said Daniel Radcliffe.
Daniel Radcliffe's a good one. Thank you so much, Thomas, for coming on today. It's been great having you on the show, and wishing you and Ardessa all the best of luck in 2026.
Thank you, Tom. It's been great.